going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater, and yeah, I'm gonna be talking about Kathleen Kennedy again. So y'all can just kind of deal with that because it's an interesting subject to cover, right? Ever since really the Last Jedi came out, and it failed to meet fan expectations in a number of ways. There's been this target, so to speak, on the back of Kathleen Kennedy. It's always been there. It's not going away, and I don't think it's going to go away until she leaves Lucasfilm. And until then, it feels like there's every vast conspiracy under the sun that's come out to further defame and smear Kathy. Now, I have been very vocal about my criticisms of her, but very, very vocal indeed. But one of the things I haven't done is gone full on tinfoil in regards to trying to either report on or manufacture behind the scenes drama, as I feel has been coming out at least the last couple days. And what I'm referring to here is there was a post over on wdwmagic.com, because a website here all about Walt Disney World in Walt Disney information. On their forums, there's a guy by the name of WDW Pro who posted this long screed where the only really interesting bit was this piece right here, where he says, the ongoing battle over Lucasfilm's direction continues with Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau, factions fighting over the studio. It's fairly well known at this point that the beef between Kennedy and Iger is real, given that Iger essentially ignored her in his memoirs. It's also hard to lose sight of how many projects Kennedy has seen fail at Lucasfilm: Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Forces of Destiny, Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures, Solo, the sequel trilogy falling in revenue with each release, while Favreau seems to have struck it out of the park with The Mandalorian, a series for Disney Plus that even Iger was giving creative suggestions for and taking notes on for each episode. Buried in the lead of Waititi directing his Star Wars film, which Kennedy has no control over, was confirmation of the female-centric Star Wars series being helmed by former Weinstein personal assistant Leslie Headland. But be ready, because it looks like almost certain that a new narrative is being pushed by Kennedy loyalists in Lucasfilm. The narrative is that Headland was only a personal assistant for 1 year, and that being against her or her series is misogynistic, mean, and unfair. Again, this is a conflict that Disney doesn't want. They don't want conflict over a hire that lavishly praised Weinstein, deleted hundreds of tweets at the same time as a leak about her project, and made no dirt on Iger and Eisner. With all that said, Kennedy has essentially gotten her way time after time, outplaying Iger, even if she has been hammered by segments of the fans, mostly by hiring and developing strong loyalty within her brand. Now, I can't be the only one that reads that and just goes, wow, what the ever-loving hell are you talking about? This reads like Alex Jones level nonsense. Like, strap a tinfoil hat on it, put it in the microwave, and WD Pro is done. That's what it feels like. Let's at least break this down bit by bit. Is there a fight between Kennedy and Jon Favreau? No. No, there's not. None that's being reported, at least. None that's even being slightly rumored outside of this guy. Kennedy and Favreau have gone back a long ways. They've known each other for a long time. As anything, most likely, Jon is taking over the TV side of things while Kennedy is heading up the studio, which is also looking at Indiana Jones 5 and a number of other projects. You guys got to remember, Kennedy is not just overseeing one project at a time. She oversees the entire studio. A lot of people tend to forget that. Favreau is only handling the one project that we know of. Now, when we talk about Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Forces of Destiny, Star Wars Galaxy Adventures, those are different scenarios entirely. Star Wars Resistance was Dave Filoni's creation after Rebels ended, and that was something that I believe was prematurely ended when they pulled him off of that to go finish up Season 7 of The Clone Wars. With him not running Star Wars Resistance, and it maybe not doing very well at 10 p.m. on Disney XD, I believe on Sunday nights, it had trouble finding a large audience. It found an audience with older people, which is exactly what Star Wars is aimed at right now. It's not aimed at the younger crowds. The average Star Wars fan is definitely older. That's why Star Wars Forces of Destiny and Galaxy of Adventures failed to reach the audiences that they were aiming for, because those younger kids are not as connected to Star Wars as their parents. Their parents are going to be the ones that introduce them to Star Wars. They're going to be the ones who introduce them to the original trilogy, to get them involved, to introduce them to Jedis, right? It's kind of like religion. Parents are the ones who indoctrinate their kids. Star Wars fandom's very similar to the same effect. So when they're trying to do this, it's going on Disney XD. I don't know the ratings of Disney XD, but I can almost somewhat guarantee that, all things considered, in the streaming age, they're maybe not as good as you might think. Now, when it comes to Favreau striking it out of the park with The Mandalorian, he did, and that had a lot to do with Baby Yoda, for one, becoming a meme, and the word of mouth from that. The show itself also being very good helped out, but a lot of people on social media were talking about it. And that show is clearly aimed for an older audience of those who grew up with with Return of the Jedi. So falling in that timeline is what people are interested in, not the sequel trilogy, but the original trilogy, and a few years after the end of that thing. So again, looking at this, it's still appealing to an older audience. When they try to appeal to a younger audience, it's not getting as much traction. And I believe at this point they're now realizing that. But this is something also that throughout the course of having Star Wars under Disney, they tried to Disneyfy it. It didn't really work out as well as they wanted it to. And a lot of that has to do with the corporate structure that they demand of their creative entities. Again, this is something that never gets talked about. The creative process gets usurped time and time and time again by how much money can I make on merchandise, how much money can I make on ancillary aspects, and how can we find a way to turn this into a repeating cash cow. This is how Disney operates on a corporate level. So you're taking Star Wars and you're trying to then fit it into this corporate box that are going to try to attract a number of different people from different demographics, and obviously certain things are going to happen. Now, when they talk here about Leslie Headland, again, it just says like, oh, she was only a personal assistant for 1 year of Harvey Weinstein. She actually worked at Miramax for 6 years right out of grad school. In one of those 6 years, she did work as Harvey Weinstein's assistant. That was earlier on in her career, back when they were still at Miramax. So this is before the split over to the Weinstein Company and everything else. So yeah, Harvey Weinstein at that time was literally the pinnacle of power in Hollywood. You did not go against him at all, period, unless you wanted your career over. There was a level of fear that he held, the fear that we're learning about now. And I love that certain people jump on that narrative as if it means like literally anything. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. People who are talking about this as being some kind of movement by, they don't know Hollywood. They don't know Hollywood. They don't know people who, they know these names, they know these faces, they know these jobs that they've done, these things that they've worked on. But at the end of the day, they don't know the people. And that is just a damn fact. You may not like her politics. She's most likely very left in Hollywood, and she's one of those types, and that's fine. You don't have to like her politics, but don't assume you know who she is as a person, because guess what? We don't. Absolutely. And by trying to frame it in that narrative, especially in this particular post right here, that she was only his assistant for 1 year, but she probably, and then he says here that she may know dirt on Iger and Eisner. Where the hell did that come from? Oh, she might know dirt on these people. All right. And I believe before in certain aspects of this too, I don't know if it's from WW Pro or other people have tried making the claim that she could have legal liability. Actually, I think it might be this guy too, saying that she's got legal liability in regards to having worked for Weinstein for 1 year. It's just, it is insanely ridiculous. The levels of just goalpost moving that happen constantly. If you want to criticize Kathy for how things played out with the sequel trilogy, by all means, there is a ton there to go for. But when you see things like this that pop up, Lucasfilm, Civil War, Kennedy allegedly banned from set as Favreau and Filoni make their move. This is something that came from Bounding Into Comics. Not the most, trustworthy source of information. A wee bit spurious from time to time. Very similar to Cosmic Book News, and definitely we got this covered in One Angry Gamer, all those guys. But they try to create this power dynamic. Here where you've got Kennedy on top, Favreau, and Iger, as if it's some kind of pyramid. And that's why I frame the image like this, that it's like some kind of pyramid with her on top, that she's this master game player, that she's been able to play both people, especially Iger, the most powerful CEO in all the entertainment industry, the guy who had to come back in after COVID in order to save the company, that she's somehow able to manufacture all of that drama, to manufacture all of those things, to pit against whatever, to fight her battles in order to make sure that Leslie here gets to do a show for Disney Plus. Now, look, I don't know who she is, as I already mentioned, but benefit of the doubt here is something that ultimately should matter to an extent, right? You'd like to think that benefit of the doubt would matter in these kind of situations. Unfortunately, though, with the grift of YouTube, it's absolutely making her out to be, and this is Kennedy here, persona non grata. Absolutely persona non grata. The number one enemy of anything related to fandom. The absolute supreme queen bitch of Hollywood, that if you look at her wrong, her agenda will kill you, destroy your career, and take you out back and beat you with a fire hose. That is the kind of nonsense you hear. Because people at this point have been criticizing her for so long that they've run out of things to talk about. So they now just manufacture stuff. So let's be realistic here. When we look at the idea of, again, the one thing in there I wanted to touch upon in that screed was the whole thing with Taika Waititi and her not having any creative control. We've heard rumors that this is the Feige production, and it's entirely possible that it is. But again, the head of the studio is still going to have creative elements to add into this. She is still going to be part of the creative process. That is not going to change. And even with Feige on board, it's not like it's only going to be Feige, unless Feige gets his hands strictly on the brand, which has been something that a lot of people out there have been asking for. Some not so much. They don't want Star Wars Marvel-fied, which I get. But you have to look at this. You have to understand the hierarchy of Hollywood, how these things play out. When you hear video content or you read articles or you see posts like from WDW Pro talking about these things, and if you have any modicum of understanding of how the industry works, of how things actually go down, you have to laugh at them, because the tinfoil is getting ridiculous. It is just getting absolutely over the top, insane, ridiculous. Iger has more to do right now than to babysit Kathleen Kennedy. There's more going on. Obviously, they wanted to wait a couple years in order to let Star Wars kind of simmer, rebuild the fan base via TV, which is what they're doing, and then go back into the feature film marketplace as a way to bolster a new audience and to repair any kind of damage with the old. The reason why Star Wars failed, at least the sequel trilogy, is because you tried taking a round peg and put it into a square hole. They handled the production of it wrong. Is that her fault? Yes, that's her fault. And they realized that, and now they're trying to rectify it. But you also have studio culture, you've got corporate culture, and you've got Disney calling the shots in a number of ways. Disney's the one who sets the release dates. It's then up to the production team at Lucasfilm, in many cases overseen by Kennedy herself, to meet that release date in order to get everything else that needs to be done for the 4-quadrant marketing all the P&As, all the merchandise, all the product placement deals, getting all the actors on all the nightly shows, getting everything out there that they need to do in order to promote this movie. It is not a flash in the pan creation. It requires up to 15,000 people in order to get a movie from its creation, its insemination to the screen. And the way that they treat Kennedy here is that she is just this be-all, end-all of everything. Like I said, the queen bee bitch of Lucasfilm and Hollywood. And if you don't like her, you're just, no. It's getting utterly, utterly ridiculous. And so many of you out there know better. But I think you just want to hate her. I think you just need someone to put the blame on, and that's fine. In regards to the sequel trilogy, 100%, the buck stops with her. Now we're past that now. We're absolutely past that. So what comes next has got to be judged on its merit when it comes out. We're now in a very large slump for Star Wars outside of The Mandalorian later this year. So now it's time to see what comes from it. So calm down, slow your roll, and anonymous people on the internet may not be the most trustworthy sources for behind-the-scenes gossip, unless that's your bag, which is entirely possible that it is. I don't know. I just can work here. However, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you for watching, and peace out.